What is up, YouTube? We are finally back in the garage. Last year, I set out on a journey to build my very own custom supercharger kit for my MR2 Spider, and I was going to base the kit around the Ogura SC14 supercharger. The supercharger comes on Previa minivans from Japan from the 90s, and if you don't know, my brother here on the channel also has a Celica GTS with the Blitz supercharger kit installed on it, which also utilizes a very similar Ogura supercharger, that is the TX12 supercharger. And that's part of the reason I wanted to keep the Ogura supercharger, same style, and there's kind of an aura around it that I wanted to keep. So I went out on the internet and found all of these refurbished SC14 superchargers, which I've talked about in the previous video, and they were all super cheap. You could buy them on Amazon, eBay, whatever. So I bought one, got it, designed my own mounts, designed and made my own custom header to clear the supercharger, designed my own water-to-air intercooler system to keep the intake temps down, installed all the gauges necessary to keep an eye on the engine while I was making boost, and also installed a standalone ECU, the Apexi Power FC. Literally everything I needed to get this MR2 back on the road, boosted and supercharged. Then a close friend at work, along with one of my subscribers, Garage Dory, notified me that Rad Factory, a YouTube channel on YouTube, actually installed one of these Amazon superchargers onto their Miata drift car, and it didn't go so well. Digging into it a little bit more, I think these refurbished superchargers are actually a little bit, almost too redone. They actually are a lot different than the OEM genuine ones. And that worries me just because superchargers are pretty precision components. They have a lot of tight tolerances, and typically those aren't the type of parts you want to be buying, you know, from China and eBay and Amazon. So from what I've read, these eBay and Amazon superchargers that are refurbished have pretty much died within a very short period of time. Whereas the OEM genuine Ogura Previa minivan superchargers actually have a pretty well-known limit to what they can handle, which is more than a few days. So I went out and purchased an OEM genuine Ogura supercharger. I also went ahead and pulled out the Amazon supercharger from the MR2 just so I can have a side-by-side comparison. There are a few noticeable differences right off the bat. The first big difference, these come with a fixed pulley, whereas the OEM ones come with a clutch pulley, which will actually be super important for me, and I'll explain that later. It does look like my mounting points are at different spots, which is pretty unfortunate. It looks like these lower ones are pretty close, but these ones on the top here are in a different location. So that's gonna be a little frustrating, as I'm gonna have to redo my custom mounts that I had cut out. And the other really big thing that I noticed, and I'm not sure how important this is, but I think it's pretty important. You can see the Amazon one here has 2 vent holes on this side of the supercharger, and this genuine one actually has a third one over on the opposite side, which is non-existent on the Amazon one. And the reason that's important is these vents actually are supposed to connect, and the whole point of that is so you have equal pressure on each side of your bearings, and that even pressure is super important to making this supercharger last a long time. I was kind of expecting that these were just a cleaned up OEM supercharger, maybe painted and bolts replaced and stuff, but I think that it's a little bit deeper than that. So one other thing I was able to look at now that I have a genuine one, this one actually didn't come with any inlets or outlets like the Amazon one did, and I was able to get a close look at these rotors on the inside. This is obviously an old supercharger, so, you know, 30 plus years old, and the rotors do look like they're in pretty good shape. There's a few little areas where possibly some heat damage or just, you know, wear and tear from the use, but I was able to finally get a look at what that Teflon coating looks like on the original superchargers. So now the first thing I want to do, because I haven't done it yet, is pull these inlets and outlets off of my Amazon one and see what the difference is, and see if those rotors are the same, see if it looks like the original coating, or see if they look like they've been recoated and possibly coated with a lower quality coating. So as you saw on the Rad Factory video, it was the coating that started coming off. So the rotors are probably still steel, but if that coating comes off and breaks off, that sends chunks into your engine. Typically that coating can, and even on the OEM ones, that coating with a lot of heat cycles and wear and tear and high RPMs, that coating can get brittle and flake off. I think that it just happens sooner with these refurbished ones. So that's what I'm gonna open up today and see really what information I can get. So let's go ahead and open this thing up. Got this thing opened up, and my goodness, this is such a relief. So I wanted to give you guys one more good look at the OEM supercharger and the Teflon coating. Look how uniform it looks. Very uniform. This one's in pretty good condition. There's one, you can see there's a little bit of a spot here, but it's very uniform still, just a little bit of a mark. And then if I show you the Amazon supercharger, check out this coating. Oh my goodness. I don't know if you can tell, but it is not uniform. There's little dimples everywhere in it. There's actually a bunch of little lines over here. This is a bad spot. This little line here, you can actually feel that with your fingernail. I wouldn't be surprised if that's 10, 20 thousandths high. Like that's a lip. You can see it over here too, where it's like the coating is like built up. There's a big mark right in the middle of it. There's actually paint overspray in here, probably from whenever they painted the outside of the supercharger. There's a good shot of the back. That in there is like, it's like not uniform. And then here, this is like a glaring spot right here. Check this out. It's just a straight up ledge. Look how ugly this coating is. So here's my conclusion. They do really refurbish these superchargers probably way too much. They probably take these superchargers that are too far gone and maybe even locked up or something, and they probably recoat the rotors, and it probably is not the same Teflon coating that is on at OEM. So my conclusion here is that the OEM ones are proven to work up to a certain RPM and be reliable, even though they can fail up to a certain point. But these Amazon ones, it's really an unknown of how long they will last. And I think the more people are buying them, and people like Rad Factory, they're kind of proving them out and seeing how long they can last. So I'm not saying the supercharger is worthless, but there's definitely some unknown factor here. Also, one other thing that I can't remember if it was like this when I bought it, or if it's because I've spun it a few times on my engine, maybe it's already wearing out. The OEM one has no slop. So if I go forward and backwards, no slop, it's very smooth. And then this one here, a lot of rattling around, a lot of slop in the pulley, which just isn't good. Not good at all. And it's just one more thing to prove that these Amazon superchargers are definitely not an OEM supercharger. So if you haven't guessed by now, the OEM Agura supercharger is gonna go on the supercharged 2ZZ MR2 Spider. I know it's been a year since I've uploaded a video, but that's not what this video is about. This video is just the start now to get this thing on the road and supercharged. And I'm super happy to have the peace of mind that I have a genuine supercharger that will not blow up on me very easily. According to Hyde Motor Works, which is a very reliable source for these SC14s, the genuine superchargers can handle up to 12,000 RPMs and still be reliable. Now, this includes other factors like proper cooling, not running them continuously, so the clutch pulley is definitely a big part of that. Based on my current setup and pulley size, I think I'll be running about 9 to 9,500 RPMs at the very max, so that's like at the upper limit of my 2ZZ engine. So all in all, I think this supercharger is going to be very reliable for me. All right, guys, so I have the supercharger and I'm feeling good about it. So the next step, now that I know the mounts are different on the actual housing itself, I do need to make new mounts. The mounts that I made are not going to work, so I'm going to try to get it in a similar position, although it's looking like it's going to be pretty tricky because the mount that is there on the housing doesn't line up at all like the other one does. So the mount's gonna probably have to be totally different. So I'll probably tackle that off camera since I've already made a video designing the other mounts. But as you can see, I did go ahead and get started and did go ahead and start tacking up some trial fit mounts just to find out what works and play around a little bit. So stay tuned for the next one. I'll have this supercharger mounted up and we'll get this thing spinning.